Hello all, myself Dr. Shanti Verma. In today's tutorial, I am going to discuss command line arguments in Python programming. Let's first discuss the learning objectives of this session. At the end of this session, you are able to understand command line arguments. You are also know how to use command line arguments, how to parse command line arguments, and at the end you are able to develop Python program using command line arguments. Let's first discuss what are command line arguments. Basically, these Python command line arguments provides you a user-friendly interface to your text-based command line programs. It is very similar to graphical user interface for a visual application that is manipulated by the graphical elements or the widgets. Python exposes our mechanisms to capture and extract your Python command line arguments. These values can be used to modify the behavior of the program. For example, if your program processes data read from a file, then you can pass the name of a file to your program rather than hard coding the value in the source code. This is the use of the command line. Now, for using this command line arguments, we required one module of Python that is called as sys module. Basically, this sys module has shipped with Python from the early days, and it is uses very similar approach as C using the ARGC and ARGV to access the command line arguments. Basically, this sys module implements the command line arguments in a simple list structure that name is sys.argv, and each list elements represents a single arguments. The first item in the list is a sys.argv 0, means the index position is 0. The second is a sys.argv 1, and the third is a sys.argv 2, and so on. And we are basically using a delimiter between the arguments when we are passing, and the default delimiter is a space. Now let's discuss a one Python program to display the command line arguments. For making any program using a command line arguments, you have to first import a sys library. Then, to know the length or the number of arguments that we have to pass in the program, for that we have using a length function, and this is the by default list created by the system when we are passing a command line argument, that is a sys.argv. Now, when we have to take in arguments of the list, then the ARGS, the list is created in the another form, and the ARGS list contains the arguments of the sys.argv, that is a default list created by the system. Now, if I want to print the number of arguments that we have passed, I stored in a n. Now, if I print the list that display the arguments that we passed, that is a ARGS, and if I want to print all the arguments one by one, then I have to make a one loop, then for I in ARGS and print I. For running this program, you have to first open your command prompt. In command prompt, there is your Python library. So first go to the Python library, Python folder with the help of the cd command. Then type first Python, then the name of your file, Python, name of your file, and then the arguments. This is basically a ARGV 0, this is ARGV 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So here the length of the number of arguments or the number of arguments are 5, and this is the list contain the all the arguments, and if I print it one by one, then first is a cmd.py, second is a 10, next is a Shanti, next is a Varma, and next is a 2020. So by using this program, we can display how many arguments we have passed in a program, and also the arguments one by one using sys module. Now let's discuss one more program to find the sum of even numbers using command line arguments. In this program, we have to pass the numbers using command line arguments. In this program, you can see that I first include a module, that is a import sys. Now I have to read all the elements that I have passed as an argument except the program name. For that I have to write 1 colon. It means it left the first argument and read 1 to the end in the list and store in a ARGS list. If I print ARGS, it prints the not the name of the file, only print the numbers that I passed in a argument. Now for storing the sum, I take a one variable, that is sum, and initialize as 0. For finding the sum of the even argument, I first make a loop in the list. So I write for I in ARGS. Basically, when these elements are stored in a list that are in the form of the strings, so first we have to convert these string into a integer form. So I here use a typecasting. Now for checking the even numbers, I use for x modulo 2 equals to 0, means if the number is modulo 2 number modulo 2 equals to 0 means number is an even number, then sum the number with the in the sum and so on, and print the sum. For running this program, I again in my Python folder and write Python, then file name and the arguments. These are the numbers 6, 8, 9, 10 and 11. Now, when I display ARGS, you can see here the cmd.py is not displayed. Now, the even numbers are 6, 8 and 10. So, it sum the 6 plus 8, that is a 6 plus 8, that is a 14, and then plus 10, that is a 24. Now, how to parse command line arguments? Basically, there is a more module that is called ARG parse. The ARG parse module is basically used for parsing the command line arguments, and this module is very easy to write, user friendly for the command line interfaces. Basically, the program defines what argument if required, and ARG parse will figure out how to parse those to the sys.arg list. The ARG parse module also automatically generates help and uses messages and issues errors when users give the program invalid arguments. So if we are using the ARG parse, it similarly gives you a GUI like feeling while you running your program. Now, what are the steps required for parsing the command line argument? There are 3 steps. The first step is creating a parser. Basically, in creating a parser, we have to use the ARG parse module and the function argument parser. Now, this with the help of this argument parser, we create a one object. So, this parser is an object. For using argument parser, I have to write arg parse dot argument parser, and the text we want to display when first the program is running. So here I write a description that process some integers. Basically, this argument parser object will hold the information that is necessary to parse the command line into the Python data types. The second step is to adding the argument. To adding the argument, basically add underscore arguments function is used with the parser object. The filling an argument parser with information about the arguments is done by making calls to the add argument method. This is stored and used when parse args is called. For example, you can write parser, that is the object I created in the first step. Now using the add argument function, what I have to pass, I have to pass an integer that I stored in a variable name num, and I have to display help that please input integer number. So this add arguments have the message please input integer number, that is stored in a one variable num having the integer type. Now the third step is a parsing argument. To parsing arguments, basically argument parser parses arguments through the parse args method, and this will inspect the command line, convert each argument to the appropriate type, and then invoke the appropriate action. In the previous program, you can see that when I pass list integer number that is stored in a form of string, I have to convert, then make a sum. If I using an argument parser, it automatically converts the number into a integer form. Basically, in most cases, this means a simple namespace object will be built up from attribute parsed out of the command line. The syntax for same is args equals to parser dot parse underscore args. That is a method. Now let's discuss one Python program using the argument parser to find the square of a given number. For that, you have to first import a module, that is arg parse module. Now the first step, you have to create an argument parser class object. So I take a object name parser, and using the argument parser function, I write arg parse dot argument parser description is a square of a given number. Now the second step is to add the argument. For adding the argument, I uses parser dot add underscore argument. I have to take a integer number that I have stored into a num variable, and help is please input an integer number. Now the third step is to retrieve the argument passed to the program. For that, I have to write parser dot parse underscore args method. Now for finding the square of the argument that I have passed, I have to make a one variable result, and stored and args dot num is a variable, and power 2, and print the result. Now, if I run my program using command line, you can see here I write Python, then the file name and the argument. I have to find the square of 5. You can see the square of number is a 25. So I have to not convert this 5 into an integer form. With the help of the argument parser, it automatically convert into an integer form. On the basis of the command line argument and the argument parser I discussed in this tutorial, I give you a two question as assignment. First is to write a Python program to add two integer number using the argument parser, and second is to write a program to find the sum of the odd numbers using command line argument input. For more learning, you can refer these references. Thank you.